There was a 15-year time span between 2001 Bionicle's beginning and 2016 Bionicle's end, but there was something that wrapped up quite beautifully. The fact that both years, at least in part, focused on Rahi, or creatures. 2001, of course, used the Rahi as, well, essentially villains, enemies of our Toa heroes, and a way to populate the island, while 2016 used these creatures as a form of power-up for our heroes, and again, a way to populate the island that we would come to know for Generation 2. However, and it surprises me, 2001, I think, did it better. And I don't mean this because, well, each of the Rahi were built on different platforms at different price points. No, but because they were much less ambiguous. You see, the problem that I have with the 2016 creatures is not that they're bad sets. I actually think that they're quite good, a bit overpriced, sure, and very easy for you to do with your own pieces. But the thing that really ruins them for me is also the gimmick of these sets. Well, one of them. This right here, the creature head. This is a head that is designed to fit over top of the Uniter masks. However, because of that, it has to be shaped a very specific way, which leads to it being a somewhat ambiguous shape and very specialized as a piece in general, lacking many of the connections that I think it honestly could have had in a space this large. Here's the thing, though. It didn't have to be this way. When I look back at the creatures from 2016, at least 4 of them, I can understand what they're supposed to be, what they're trying to be. Not all of them are perfect out of the box. I'm looking at, well, the creature of stone, for example, which is kind of a mess, mostly down to its color scheme, in my opinion. But at the very least, I understand that for the creature of fire, we get a bird. The creature of jungle, we get a insect. The creature of water is a fish or aquatic swimming creature of some kind, at least. And of course, that creature of stone is a scorpion or scorpion-like creature. But what about the creature of ice and the creature of earth? I'm not exactly sure what these are supposed to be. They feel mammalian to me, for one thing, walking on 2 legs, but also because of just sort of their stature in general. But I couldn't tell you exactly what they are, and that could be a good thing or a bad thing. Out of the box, I think it's kind of bad because when I look back at 2001, I know that the Nui Rama are exactly what they are, and maybe the only one that's ambiguous to me is the Terakava. Are they lizards? Yeah. Would you know that by looking at them? It depends. But when I look back at the creature of ice, I get to kind of use my imagination to tell me what it is, because Lego sure didn't. Here's the thing, though. It didn't have to be this way, and I say that because we had animal helmets, animal masks, animal heads from Hero Factory that could have been reused here. Maybe it would have been a little weird to have some crossover, but it would have saved, well, Lego the money of making this piece. And to be honest, I don't think it going over the mask is worth the sacrifice of, well, everything else that comes with it. So I look at a character like Ikir, and I see this mask, and yeah, it looks somewhat bird-like in its shape, but you know what else looks bird-like? This mask right here, which is in fact a bird helmet for Furno. Why would they not use something like this? Even if they wanted to modify it or just dress it up to look somewhat similar to this, it baffles me. I understand why they didn't do it. For one thing, this was probably retired by that point in time, no big deal, but we do have it. So I think to myself, well, what would this look like on Ikir? Or what would maybe this look like on the creature of stone? Sure, the gold probably wouldn't work out very well. Again, that set is a mess in color scheme in general. But it is close enough to start approaching a pretty cool aesthetic. We also have helmets like this one here from the Scorpio set. And this one looks great as well for an insect-like creature. So why not use something like it? Or this for the creature of water? Again, this still leaves us with the question of ice and earth, so I wanted to propose these as my option, what I would choose. When I look back at the creature of ice and I think about its function, what does it remind me of the most? Well, it's a hugging function, essentially. And I think of a bear. Something kind of like this. If this was recolored white, it's essentially just a little polar bear, right? with a hug. And that's cool. You know, it's cute, obviously, but it still works as something kind of small but menacing at the same time. That mask obviously has a sort of menacing aesthetic to it. And then when I think of Earth and I see that the arms move up and down on that figure, I think about, well, what about like a gorilla, a knuckle walking animal, right? So the arms both go down. It has these powerful claws. It, of course, stands on two legs when it's necessary. And good Lord, can they be imposing little creatures, intelligent and crazy, wonderful creatures. And I like this one here too, this sort of saber-toothed gorilla. It's a really fantastic helmet too. It's one of my favorites from this entire wave. And I think that this really works for this one as well. There are definitely other helmets that I think work for Earth just as well too, because when I also think of those downward moving claws, I think of something like a tiger or cat of some kind, which can oftentimes stand up on two legs and do a downward slash, right? Or a red panda, which does a very similar thing, has a similar looking head as well. Well, we obviously got a tiger or saber-toothed tiger head with the next character from Savage Planet as well. So we have plenty of options here. And I just have to think to myself, well, why was that not what we did? Even if it wasn't these exact pieces, because yes, I understand that like this helmet here has a little scope on the side. It probably wouldn't make a lot of sense for Bionicle, though it's small enough and easy enough to ignore. Some of the other helmets have little antennas coming off, whatever. Like I get it. Also, again, as I mentioned, many of these pieces were probably retired by this point. But something else you may have noticed in this video is that not only am I using these helmets from Hero Factory, I'm also using the Brain Attack head because it actually works in all of these cases. The closest one, the one that's probably the most stressed, or really the only one that's stressed here, is the bear head, only because it's not really made for this type of attachment. But with a simple modification, it can be done, or just stressing the piece in general. So the thing I have to ask myself is, okay, I like this idea. It's one simple change, but I think it adds a lot of character to these creatures, something that honestly Generation 2 Bionicle really lacked and needed help with. Something else I'd like to see, though, not completely necessary, but something I really appreciated about the Rahi back in 2001, and 2001 as a whole was colors in general, right? We got sets like the Tarago, which swapped primary and secondary colors. We got the McDonald's Matoran, which introduced an entire new tertiary color to their element. And of course, the Rahi themselves, which oftentimes didn't match their own element, or at least where they were found on the island, opting for colors like medium blue and dark turquoise and things like that in different places. And I loved that fact about them. So why not do something similar here, taking secondary colors from many of the Toa in these cases and using them as primaries here. So instead of something like this in white, maybe you get something like this in white and medium azure, you know, with a medium azure helmet instead. Or you get something like this one here with the helmet in orange to match the wings, or this one with the helmet in like Keto orange or dark turquoise or whatever the case, right? I think that these were all options, completely doable, and I would have really appreciated seeing something like this because, again, it just goes that little extra bit further. Getting a mask that would have been properly fully purple instead of like dual molded or something to make it much more limiting to use would have been incredible. Unfortunately, that's not what we got. LEGO instead settled on this piece here, which, while cool, and it is something I use occasionally as like armor or on occasional builds as well, because it does have its uses, it's still an overall large, gimmicky piece. And the other sort of failure point in this one, in my opinion, is the fact that they are dual molded. LEGO had an obsession with dual molding pieces in Generation 2 Bionicle, and I think part of the reason for that was to stand out from Hero Factory, which actually includes very few dual molded parts. It's something I think Hero Factory did right. But yeah, unfortunately, that's not the reality that we live in. Something I may end up doing, I'll definitely put quotes around that, is actually resin casting some of these pieces and seeing how they work, if I like them, because I think I will. So that's something I'm going to play around with, probably a little bit down the road. But, of course, if I like the end results, then you can expect to see another video here talking about this as sort of a part 2 to this one. And maybe I'll go a little bit further, but I don't know in exactly what way yet. 2016 is a bit of a mess, in my opinion. It had potential, for sure. And the beasts even somewhat touch on an aspect of Generation 2 that I really wanted to see, though I don't think they go about doing it the right way. But I'll address that in its own separate video in the future. As for this one, I think that's enough. So, of course, if you like this type of content, make sure to leave a like and subscribe. You already know it helps the channel out. It's the biggest way you can say thanks, and it tells the algorithm channel do good. So on top of that, you can join the conversation down in the comments below. Let me know your thoughts on the animals from these waves. What do you envision them as? What do you think they are? Or what animals would you want to see alongside the 6 that we got? And of course, alongside Agil, the hawk, right? Or falcon. Of course, you can also take the conversation further over on Discord, Instagram, and Patreon if you want to help support the channel and get some perks. I'll see you all in the next one. Take care.